welcome back to my channel. It has been so long. I haven't posted in forever. I've just had a lot going on and we're going to talk about it. I did take some notes about what I wanted to talk about, or at least the order, so that way it didn't come across like super scattered. So yeah, we're going to talk about this new diagnosis I got and the treatment that I got for it a couple days ago and that. So let's start with my symptoms because they started first and they started a long time ago, and I brushed off most of them for a long time until they got worse and worse and worse. So I would get lightheaded really easily. I would get ringing in my ears. I would get, now I know it's called temporary blindness, but originally I thought I was having what's called silent migraines, which is where you get visual disturbances, like chunks of your eyesight are missing and you never get a migraine. I know it's called silent migraines, but I guess it was actually temporary blindness looking back. I would get eye pain, which I thought was from being on my computer or my phone for too long. I am a full-time student, so I'm on my computer a lot and I'm on my phone a lot because I just like to be on my phone a lot. So eventually it got to the point where I was having trouble reading my computer and my assignments, and I would strain my eyes trying to focus on the words on the screen, and it made my assignments really hard to work on because it's like I couldn't focus my eyes no matter how hard I tried. So I finally decided it was time to at least get my eyes checked out. I probably needed glasses because I had a really tiny prescription when I was 18, so I thought I was overdue for an eye exam anyway. So I went in to an optometrist and I did a regular eye exam, and I did need glasses, and you can kind of tell with that purple reflect, I did get the blue light blocker, thinking it would solve all the other issues I mentioned, and of course it didn't, but it did help with my schoolwork, at least reading my assignments. And during that visit, she could tell that there was something inflamed behind my eye, but she couldn't really see what it was because I couldn't get my eyes dilated because I did not have someone who could drive me home. So she told me that she was gonna refer me over to an ophthalmologist and have them look at my eyes and do some testing just to rule out anything crazy, because there could be a lot of different things that inflammation behind your eye could be. So I go to the ophthalmologist and he did a bunch of testing. They all came back abnormal. At one point, my vision was showing like early signs of glaucoma. My peripheral vision was gone. Well, not completely, but I was missing a lot of my peripheral vision. My left eye, like up top, I had like blind spots. My eyes were pretty bad. And so he was able to measure the inflammation on my eye, and like this was the chart, and like this is like what's normal. Mine was like off the chart on the paper that they had printed. So they got an accurate measurement of that, and I have to go back next month to redo it to see if the treatment I received a couple days ago helped. But he basically said at that point it's either a brain tumor or it's high blood pressure. And he sent me to a neurologist to do further testing to try and rule out a brain tumor. So before I could get to my neurologist appointment, because it was a couple days away after my ophthalmologist, I thought that I had a stroke. My left eye went black. My left side went heavy. My face, like I remember the left side of my face felt weird. My fingertips and my toes were numb, but not my whole left. My whole left side wasn't numb. It was just like heavy and a little bit weaker than my right side. Not by a whole lot, but enough to make me worry that it was a stroke. So Chris took me to the ER, and after hours of waiting and getting a CT scan, it confirmed that I did not have a stroke. They just diagnosed it as an atypical migraine. Oh, another thing, when I was having the headache and the weakness, the back of my neck, like from the back of my head down my neck to like my shoulder, was really stiff and sore. And that is an important symptom to remember in a little bit. So they diagnosed it as atypical migraine, sent me over to my they said, you know, we see you have a neurologist appointment in a couple days, just go to that appointment. So I go to my neurologist appointment, and I don't know what I was expecting, but I guess I wasn't expecting a diagnosis. I was expecting him, I'm so used to, like with my AERD before I met the doctors that I have now, I remember being sick for a really long time and doctors brushing me off like, you have no issues, you're young, you're fine, don't worry about it. So it was really weird. Like, I guess I was expecting that, like to go into my neurologist, and in my mind, I wasn't sick. So I didn't feel like I could prove there was an issue. I don't know how else to describe that. Because when I was sick with my respiratory disease, it was like, I can't breathe. My sinuses, I can't smell, I can't taste, something's wrong with me. And like, I could go back on my symptoms. Where this, I didn't think I had any symptoms, even though in the beginning, all those symptoms I listed were just stuff I was brushing off. So when I went to the neurologist, he was not disregarding of anything. He was very attentive and he asked me a lot of questions, and some I wasn't expecting. And the more we talked, the more I realized all the symptoms at the beginning of this video that I brushed off were related to whatever was going on. And I remember like getting halfway through our conversation, I was like, you know what? There's some symptoms I haven't talked to doctors about because I just didn't think about, or I just felt like they were related to something else, and they could very well be. But I get lightheaded, I get ringing in my ears, and I explained everything. And then we talked for a really long time, and he was very attentive to me, and I really appreciate that. And he said, I'm fairly certain that you have what's called idiopathic intercranial hypertension, otherwise known as a pseudotumor. And he said, basically your brain is acting as though there is a tumor and there is not a tumor. He's like, I can see in your CT scan there's no tumor, but just to be sure, I don't want to diagnose you yet until we do an MRI, just to like rule out any like small hidden ones that might be behind your eye or somewhere else in your brain. So he gave me a bunch of information about the idiopathic intracranial hypertension, and he's talked about treatments, and he's like, you know, if your MRI comes back fine, I want to do a spinal tap to measure your pressure and release the pressure. And if your pressure keeps building, then we might have to give you what's called a shunt. That goes, it's like a surgical, it's like a brain surgery where they don't cut into your brain, but they like cut, they have to like, you go under, they like shave your head, cut part of your head, and they put like a tube that starts in your brain and goes all the way down to your stomach. So that way when your brain has too much fluid, it drains it on its own without having to do a lumbar puncture every single time you have too much fluid. So he talked about everything, and he's like, all right, go do your MRI. It'll be in a couple days. So I go do the MRI, and MRIs are kind of freaky, like on their own, because you go in like a tiny, it feels like you're in a coffin, and like you're going to a little room. And like the first like 5 seconds, I was like panicking a little bit, and then it kind of got better the longer I was in there, and I kind of took a nap. Eventually it was nice, but the first little bit I was kind of like, this is really tight, this is really tiny. But yeah, so that the MRI took about an hour. It was just standard. And then before the MRI results, because the MRI was on a Sunday, which is really weird. I didn't think Kaiser was open on Sundays, but I guess neurology just never gets a break. And so I did the MRI on Sunday, and then Monday, my symptoms worsened. And I thought I was like being a hypochondriac, because everything that I had talked to him about and all the other symptoms he had talked to me about, it was like amplified. And I thought I was going crazy, because it was like I had this pressure in my head and I couldn't get it to go away. And I know what pressure feels like on my face because I get it in my sinuses, but it was in my head. And my eyes hurt really bad. It was to the point where pain was going down my neck to my shoulders, to my shoulder blades, similar to what I had when I thought I was having a stroke, the pain going down my neck to my shoulder. And it stayed that way for days. I finally emailed my doctor on Wednesday and was like, this has been going on for a couple days. I don't know if it's normal. I've tried taking my migraine medication and it's not working. For those of you who don't know, I have aspirin exacerbated respiratory disease, otherwise known as AERD, and I'm very allergic to aspirin or ibuprofen. So when I get a migraine, my only options really are sumatriptan, and it wasn't working. I couldn't really do anything for like the tenderness. I would have Chris like rub a tennis ball on my shoulders, and it helped a little bit, but it would just come right back. And so it takes a couple days for the doctor to see your email sometimes, depending on like how backed up they are. And so a couple days later, my MRI results came in, and my doctor had his nurse call me and told me the results of the MRI. The MRI was clear. There was no tumor, which was great. But because my symptoms had worsened, they said, you need to get a spinal tap today. And unfortunately, our offices are booked up today, so you have to go to the emergency room. They said if your pressure is really high and it stays really high forever, your symptoms are just going to get worse, and it could cause really scary thing like seizures, or like there's a bunch of other things that like that high pressure can cause if you leave it. And so I was like, fine. It was Friday. There was a lot of traffic. It took forever to get to the ER. And even when we got to the ER, it took forever. I think it was neurology, like the department that had to do the spinal tap. And whatever department it was, they were like completely booked. All their rooms were full. So even though the doctor who was going to perform it, she had her team all ready for me, they couldn't do anything because they didn't have a room for me. So I was in the waiting room for hours. I got there Saturday evening. I think it was like 5 o'clock. I didn't get in till 1 in the morning on Saturday. I had to just wait in the ER waiting room, falling asleep, waking up in the chairs. And then they finally did the spinal tap at about 2 because they had to like prep the room for me and everything. And now let's talk about the spinal tap, because boy, oh boy, was that an adventure. Basically, what they did is I had to lay on my side, curled up in a ball. And I guess laying on your side is the only way they can do it to get an accurate pressure reading. So when I had my epidural with Isaiah, I was able to sit up and hunch over. That's not an option if you're doing, sorry, my nose itches, if you're doing a pressure reading. So you lay on your side, and then they sterilize the area, everything's sterile. They at least my doctor, she did a couple, I think it was 2 shots, because it felt like 2 different kinds of burning. I think it was called lidocaine, and then she would do the actual lumbar puncture. So she did the 2 shots of lidocaine, the lumbar puncture, and she couldn't get, because it was almost like there was, I don't have anything really, it almost felt like there was like a bigger needle in my back that was hollow, and like a smaller needle was going in it. Because I couldn't feel the needle, but I could feel the rubbing, and I could feel the pressure of the needle moving in my back. And also, while she was looking for the right spot that she's supposed to poke, she hit many, many nerves, and it felt like I was being electrocuted. And she described it that the nerves in your spine are free floating because they float in the spinal fluid. So even if she hit a perfect spot, a nerve could move and hit it, and that would give me the same pain. So my nerves were being hit, and it felt like I was being electrocuted, and you can't move when that is in your spine. Well, the first time, she couldn't get it in the right position. So she had to take out the lumbar puncture, get more lidocaine, go a little bit higher up my back and do 2 shots of lidocaine, do another lumbar puncture. Same exact thing happened. She hit a bunch of nerves, and she couldn't get it in the right position. So she takes it out, goes a little bit higher, does more shots of lidocaine, another lumbar puncture. That time she got it, and we were able to measure the pressure going on in my back, and normal pressure is at between 15 and 20. Anything over 20, she said, is diagnosable. I was at 40. My pressure was at 40, which is extremely high and totally explains my symptoms and why they were worsening. So she's like, okay, it's kind of hard from what I understand. Think of like when you're filling pressure into a tire. You can put air in the tire, but you don't know exactly how much air you're putting in until you let go and you take a reading, right? And then you can go back and do more. Similar for your spine, but like in reverse, like taking it out. She can take out fluid, but she doesn't know exactly how much she's taken out until she takes a reading. So she took out some fluid, measured, took out some fluid, measured. As she was taking the fluid out, I could feel my vision open. It was like the room got brighter, almost like I had eyelids like this and they finally like opened and I could just see the world. It got a lot lighter. Like I didn't realize how dark my vision had gotten. Also my neck pain and shoulder pain went away instantly. As soon as I was able to sit up, none of this hurt anymore. Wasn't even sore. I'm trying to think what else. My headache went away. And so she was able to get my pressure down to 21. She didn't really feel comfortable getting it lower than that because it's possible she could take too much. And she, you know, you don't want to go too low because your brain does need the fluid. And so while 21 is considered a high pressure because it's over 20, it's better than 40. And for me, my head feels a lot better. My sinuses are messed up, but I haven't been able to do proper treatment for my AERD, so I'm gonna figure that out later. But yeah, that felt a lot better. After they did the spinal tap, I had to lay flat on my back for about an hour and a half, which they had, it was really cool to see because I guess your spinal fluid's like clear, like absolute vodka clear, or like water clear. They had it in tubes and there was so much spinal fluid because there was like they had a bunch of little tubes and they were just filling them up as they went. So she's like, well, we'll just test for this and this and this because we had all this fluid. She's like, we might as well test for all of it. So she tested it all came back fine. There wasn't any like cancer. I think it does test for cancer. I know there's like a brain inflammation one they test, like the wall. I don't remember. There's like a bunch of stuff they test. Infection is another one. None of that was there, thank heavens. They tested it all. And about an hour and a half later, when the results came in, I was able to leave. I could get up and walk around, which I didn't know if I was going to be able to do after the spinal tap. I guess because when you get the epidural, your legs are numb. And with the spinal tap, you're not numb, except for the back. And the longer I laid on my back, the more I hated it because the numbness was wearing off on my lower back. So I could feel like I could feel where they poked it and it was really sore. I did not bruise immediately. In fact, the next day I was bruised and the day after that I was even more bruised. So I'm still bruised and I'm still tender. I find if I do too much around the house or move around too much, I'm really hurting later in the day. It's kind of like I have a back injury again. So I'm trying to be gentle with it while also move around so I don't like baby it too much. I also got really bruised when they took my blood because I had to make sure I wouldn't bleed out when they did the lumbar puncture, and I'm like really bruised from that. What else? Oh, when I left the room, I had to go to the pharmacy to get this medication, which is called Diamox. I can't really show you the bottle without showing you all my information, but this is what the pill looks like, and it's huge. It's like the size of my finger. It reminds me of prenatal pills because it's green and it's got like, it's just huge, and that's just like prenatal pills. It's basically a diuretic, makes you pee a lot, and the point is to try to make you pee out any of the excess fluid in your spine. What I wasn't expecting with this medication was numbness in my fingers, my toes. I get it in my face, but mostly my lips, which is very scary because I have AERD. When I would take aspirin before I knew I was allergic, I would have anaphylactic reactions where my lips would swell. And the first sign for me of lip swelling is they go numb and then they swell. And when my lips went numb with this, I was like, oh crap, is there aspirin in this? And then luckily there wasn't. It was just a symptom or like a side effect of the medication. So I've been drinking tons of water. You're supposed to drink tons of water anyway after a spinal tap, but especially when you're on Diamox, you need to make sure you're hydrated. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, I guess we could talk about recovering from a lumbar puncture because there was stuff I wish I would have done before to make it easier on me. But if you're going to get a lumbar puncture done, make sure you have a driver. Make sure you bring slippers or like sandals that you could just slip your feet into, because I brought tennis shoes. And so bending over to put the tennis shoes on was so painful, like right after the lumbar puncture. I also was wearing jeans, which was a no-no. I should have just worn like loose baggy sweats. That would have been really easy to get on and off so you can get in the gown. bring a rubber band. I brought one, but I left it in the car, which did me no good when it came time to like go in my room. I think that's it. So where do we go from now? What's my treatment for now? I don't know. So I just keep showing my shirt because I just happened to be wearing it today. I have AERD. That's one chronic illness. I have this pseudotumor. It's another chronic illness. While a lot of the symptoms kind of are similar, they kind of go against each other. So right now I'm feeling pretty good with my IIH because I just did the spinal tap, but my sinuses are suffering because I couldn't do any budesonide soaks in my sinuses. And so now I can't taste or smell, so I have to go into my ENT tomorrow and probably get prednisone, which sucks because I don't know, there's just a lot to it. I know I can never be aspirin desensitized for AERD because a lot of the treatments for my IIH or the pseudotumor, you can't take aspirin, and I know Diamox, you're not allowed to take aspirin, and even baby aspirins you can only take with caution, and that's not enough to be desensitized for AERD. So I don't know, oh, my phone's going. I don't know what I'm gonna do for treatment. I really don't want to do the brain shunt because I don't want to do brain surgery. It sounds really scary. I really don't want to do it, but I'm also well aware that spinal taps are not a permanent solution for treatment. I know that Diamox doesn't work for a lot of people as a permanent treatment. So I think what I'm going to do is I've always needed to like lose a couple pounds. I am not obese, but my BMI is getting close. So I am going to try to lose some weight. I don't want to make any promises because as soon as I hold myself accountable, I give up. So I'm going to try and lose some weight and see if it helps. And I'll keep you guys posted on how that goes. If it does help, if it doesn't, I've heard many people who were a lot heavier than me, and then when they lost a lot of the weight, their symptoms got worse, and that's kind of scary. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen for me. I'm hoping I could be some of the people who lose weight and my symptoms go away. I know you can go into remission with the pseudotumor, meaning your symptoms can go away for a while, but they can also come back. Yeah, so we will see what happens with that. I'll let you know in the future. I am also planning on making weekly videos. I'm hoping to do it every Tuesday because that seems to be my free day right now with school. So let me know what you want to see in the future or what you're interested in knowing about me, and I'll be willing to make a video on it. Or I'll just do updates or maybe some fun videos. I don't know. Yeah, that's all I have to share today. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.